On July 4th, 1776, 13 British colonies had declared their independence from Britain. 7 years later, independence was won. Now what? The fight for governing that new nation had just begun. Fighting between the British and the 13 British colonies had begun in April 1775. In June 1775, George Washington was commissioned Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army and Navy. On July 4th, 1776, the Second Continental Congress of the United States of America officially declared its independence from Great Britain. Under General Washington's leadership, the British were defeated and the country emerged as a newly independent nation. In 1781, the Articles of Confederation were ratified to form the Congress of Confederation. King George III formally ordered an end to the hostilities on December 5th, 1782. Peace negotiations took place in Paris with John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and John Jay representing the United States of America. On September 3rd, 1783, the Treaty of Paris, which legally recognized the United States of America as an independent country, was signed. On November 25th, 1783, George Washington led a procession through New York City on horseback. The last of the British soldiers boarded their boats and left the harbor. George Washington, believing he had fulfilled his duties to the country, resigned his commission as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army on December 23, 1783, and returned to private life. The decade following the Revolutionary War was one of instability and change. It was the end of monarchy rule and the beginning of evolving governmental structures. There was religious fragmentation, challenges to the family system, economic unrest, and massive population shifts. The Congress of the Confederation, commonly referred to as the Continental Congress, was the governing law of the United States from March 1, 1781, until it was replaced on March 3, 1789, by the Constitution of the United States. The purpose of the Congress was to make war and peace, conduct foreign affairs, request men and money from the states, coin and borrow money, regulate Indian affairs, and settle disputes among the states. It had the same members with the same limited powers as the previous Congress. The Congress of Confederation was a unicameral body with legislative and executive function, with delegates appointed by each individual state. Each delegate had one vote. It was a centralized government. The citizens of the new nation had numerous concerns. Many of them centered on the Articles of Confederation and the powers delegated to Congress. The Congress had trouble agreeing on what those powers were. Proposals to give Congress the power to tax and regulate commerce failed to get the required approval of all 13 states. With little power and without the threat of war, governing became difficult. Often, there was not enough delegates to meet to form a quorum. The country faced a massive $40 million debt as a result of the War for Independence. The national government could not regulate international or interstate trade. Taxation and policy making remained with individual states. Voluntary state requisitions either failed to be paid or refused to be paid. Congress could not even pay the interest on its outstanding debt. The decade subsequently produced economic instability, social unrest, and class conflict. During the 1787 Constitutional Convention, the central issue was whether the federal government or the states would have more power. Some delegates believed that the federal government should be able to overrule state laws. Others feared that a strong federal government would oppress their citizens. It was during that convention that the delegates decided to completely redesign the government. George Washington gave in to public pressure to lead the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia and became head of the committee to draft the new Constitution. The delegates believed Washington was the most qualified man to lead the committee because of his earned great respect and trust during the war. Most of the problems with drafting the Constitution were resolved with the Great Compromise. It determined that there would be two houses in the legislative branch. One would be proportional representation, and the other would be equal representation. The Constitution also created the offices of the President and Vice President, fully separating them from Congress. It established the Electoral College based on each state's congressional representation. The first presidential election was held on Monday, December 15, 1788, to Saturday, January 10, 1789. Washington earned a unanimous 69 electoral votes to become the first president of the United States of America. Washington did not have a running mate because that concept had not yet been established. John Adams received the second most votes and became the nation's first vice president. George Washington took the oath of office as President of the United States of America while standing on the balcony of Federal Hall of Wall Street in New York on April 30th, 1789.